The used motorcycle market is about to explode. Over 3 million bikes are hitting the streets, and prices are plummeting fast. If you don't act now, you could miss out on the opportunity of a lifetime. Stay till the end to see how this massive shift could change the game forever. The deluge. Imagine walking into a warehouse the size of 10 football fields, every square foot packed with motorcycles. Row after row, chrome flashing, tanks gleaming, handlebars brushing against one another like trees in a forest of steel. Now imagine 3 of those warehouses all filled to the brim, and then realize that is only a fraction of what is about to hit the American market. That is the scale of the coming used motorcycle apocalypse. More than 3 million bikes, all chasing too few riders. The number is not a marketing spin. Industry trackers put the active motorcycle population in the United States at roughly 9.5 million registered units, which means nearly 1 out of every 3 motorcycles in circulation could soon be up for sale. That is not a ripple. It is not even a wave. It is a tsunami. And when a tsunami hits, it does not just soak the shoreline. It remakes the entire coast. Where does this wall of machines come from? From every corner of the riding world. Dealers desperate to clear unsold stock, banks unloading repossessed toys, estates liquidating collections, and ordinary riders cashing out to cover rising costs of living. Each by itself would be a challenge. Together, they form a storm system so powerful it rewrites the rules of the market. Already, auction houses are breaking patterns that held for decades. Prices that once climbed with the spring thaw are plunging before summer even begins. Listings multiply daily, like mushrooms after rain. Dealers whisper about clogged showrooms where bikes sit like unsold furniture, gathering dust and interest charges. Private sellers watch in disbelief as their once prized machines earn only lowball offers. This is not just another buyer's market. It is an extinction-level event for pricing power. 3 million bikes crashing into circulation means supply overwhelms sentiment, nostalgia, and even brand loyalty. For the first time in memory, the machine in your garage is worth only what the next desperate seller cannot undercut. The deluge is not coming. It is already here. But numbers on a page are nothing until you see who's selling and why. Pandemic boom, bust. This crisis has roots in a strange kind of prosperity. Between 2020 and 2022, motorcycles became the escape vehicle of choice. With cities locked down, travel restricted, and stimulus checks arriving in mailboxes, Americans reached for toys that promised freedom. Cheap credit and historically low interest rates meant you could roll a new bike out of a showroom with little more than a signature. Sales surged, and dealerships scrambled to secure inventory. Manufacturers and distributors mistook this surge for a permanent reset. They ordered deep, they expanded output, and they believed a new golden age of 2 wheels had begun. It was not. The boom disguised itself as lasting demand, but it was really a one-off binge. By 2023, as life normalized, many of those pandemic riders had already drifted away. The bikes they bought sat in garages, lightly ridden and heavily financed. Now the hangover is here. Demand has cooled, but supply chains are still pushing units into circulation. That is how we reach the absurd spectacle of showrooms well-stocked, while consumer sentiment weakens. Oversupply has begun to collide with softening appetite, and when that happens, prices only go one direction, down. Tell us in the comments below, which old bike would you buy if all bikes are discounted due to the tsunami? Graybeard's exit. The American motorcycle landscape has long leaned on the baby boomer generation. These riders carried Harley rallies, cruiser tours, and weekend charity events for decades. But time does what markets cannot. The average age of motorcycle owners has climbed into the 50s and beyond. Shoulders ache, reaction time slow, and a 700-pound touring bike that once felt like freedom begins to feel like a liability. As a result, thousands of seasoned riders are hanging up the keys. For some, it is a reluctant goodbye. For others, a family decision after one too many close calls. Either way, Their garages are filling classifieds. Large cruisers, baggers, and tourers, machines once bought with pride, are appearing at estate auctions and on dealer trade-in lists. The scale is extraordinary. Even if only a modest fraction of older riders liquidate in the next year, that alone could add hundreds of thousands of machines to an already saturated market. Many of these retirements feel like small funerals. The garage that once smelled of oil and leather turns silent. The Sunday rides replaced with estate sales and Craigslist ads. Children and grandchildren often handle the listings, not knowing the stories behind the chrome. Sentiment rarely survives contact with the marketplace. This demographic shift is not about fashion or hype. It is about biology. When a generation that defined American motorcycling begins to exit en masse, the used market swells. Younger riders cannot absorb this wave quickly. Their incomes and interests differ. That mismatch forces sellers to drop prices just to clear space. But demographics are not the only force reshaping the market. There is a harsher one, your bank account. If you're finding this breakdown eye-opening, hit that subscribe button. It tells me to keep digging deeper. And when the hangover hits, the first to feel it are not the dealers, it is the aging loyalists. Paper plates, tough rates. Credit once greased the wheels of motorcycle ownership. Those days are over. As interest rates climbed through 2023 and 2024, financing a discretionary toy became a punishing decision. Average annual percentage rates for power sports loans jumped several points, pushing monthly payments into car note territory. For many riders, especially those who bought during the pandemic boom, refinancing or renewing became impossible without severe sticker shock. The result is a pipeline of repossessions and voluntary surrenders. Banks and credit unions have begun unloading defaulted units through wholesale auctions, and those auctions set the benchmarks for retail pricing. Every repossessed bike that sells below book value drags the comparable market down another notch. It is a vicious cycle. More defaults create more supply. More supply lowers values. Lower values create more negative equity, which drives still more defaults. This credit squeeze also freezes would-be buyers. If financing is prohibitively expensive, the buyer pool shrinks, leaving only cash buyers to circle the glut. Dealers feel this acutely as floor plan loans weigh heavier, but the real pain starts in living rooms when riders realize the math no longer works. And when repos meet riders, the crash gets personal. Gear up for your next ride with top-quality accessories. Check out the link for the best deals on motorcycle gear. Harley heritage under siege. For decades, Harley riders wore their resale values like a badge of honor. The logic was simple. Buy a big V-twin, ride it for years, and when the time came to sell or trade, there would always be another loyal buyer waiting with cash in hand. That promise held for generations, and it helped justify the steep initial price tag. But now, the foundation of that confidence is cracking. In local classifieds and auction listings, late-model Harleys are piling up. Machines that once commanded premium resale are now sitting unsold for months. Dealers quietly admit they are offering trade-in values that would have been unthinkably low even 3 years ago. The problem is not just oversupply, it is identity. Harley riders have long insisted their bikes are more than transportation. They are heritage, rebellion, and Americana wrapped in chrome. Watching those same machines lose thousands in market value feels like an insult to the culture itself. At swap meets and weekend rallies, the tension is obvious. Conversations drift from rides and routes to resale values and market crashes. Prideful owners polish chrome that no longer commands a premium, insisting the lifestyle matters more. But under the roar of engines, the silence of lost equity lingers. Owners respond in different ways. Some double down, refusing to sell, and insisting that real riders do not care about book value. Others panic, rushing to offload before values slide further. A few admit, reluctantly, that their loyalty has become a financial liability. The loud pipes and leather jackets cannot drown out the uncomfortable truth. The resale safety net is gone. Meanwhile, the spreadsheet warriors are actually celebrating the chaos. Suzuki spreadsheet riders. Suzuki owners never leaned on nostalgia or brand mythology. Their pride has always come from cold arithmetic. A GSX-R bought 10 years ago, they argue, still delivers 90% of the performance of a new superbike at a fraction of the cost. A V-Strom purchased second-hand offers cross-country range without bleeding the bank account. For these riders, every mile is proof of efficiency. Now, in a collapsing market, that mindset looks prophetic. As Harleys and luxury imports bleed value, Suzukis hold relatively steady. Why? Because they were never inflated by image or exclusivity. They were priced to move, maintained to last, and judged by performance per dollar. In effect, Suzuki riders set the new floor for the entire used market. Sellers with more glamorous badges are being forced to benchmark against these value machines. If a rider can pick up a reliable Suzuki for $4,000, the Ducati owner cannot realistically expect $12,000 for a temperamental Italian twin of the same vintage. In online forums, Suzuki riders trade not just stories, but spreadsheets. Charts of miles per gallon, cost per mile, and repair intervals circulate like sacred texts. They brag less about speed than savings, treating every ride as a math problem solved. In this crash, that logic finally looks invincible. This shift empowers budget-conscious buyers. They scour online listings, run spreadsheets, and point out that the just-as-good logic has finally won. To them, the apocalypse is not a threat, it is validation. They knew the math worked, and now the market agrees. But markets are not made only by calculators. They are also shaped by adrenaline, ego, and hype. But when hype takes over value, chaos follows, and that is Kawasaki's domain. Kawasaki chaos. If Harley represents tradition and Suzuki represents pragmatism, Kawasaki embodies raw energy. These are the riders who measure life in horsepower, who film exhaust clips in parking garages, and who treat every straight stretch of road as a drag strip. In normal times, their obsession with numbers, 0 to 60, top speed, dyno charts, adds fuel to showroom demand. In a market crash, it adds volatility. Kawasaki machines, especially the lime green sport bikes, flood resale channels faster than most. Young owners, often stretched thin financially, list their Ninjas and Z-Series bikes as soon as payments pinch. At the same time, another wave of riders hunts those listings, eager to buy cheap power while sellers panic. The result is a whiplash market, dozens of nearly identical machines undercutting each other by a few $100s every week. Online platforms become battlegrounds of flashing price drop alerts. On TikTok and Instagram, Kawasaki stunts loop endlessly. Wheelies down city streets, exhausts crackling in tunnels, neon fairings glowing under streetlights. The same riders posting these clips are the ones dumping bikes when money runs short. Social media fuels the hype, and the market pays the price for every viral thrill. This churn accelerates downward pricing more aggressively than in cruiser or touring segments. The emotional charge of owning the fastest bike makes riders buy impulsively and sell just as quickly when money runs tight. That cycle magnifies the glut, turning what might have been a manageable oversupply into a roller coaster of undercutting. The chaos defines Kawasaki's corner of the apocalypse. And then come the dreamers who thought passion alone could outrun the numbers. Ducati dreams shattered. Ducati riders never cared about spreadsheets. They spoke of symphonies, design, and heritage. Owning one of these Italian machines was less about transport and more about theater. The dry clutch rattle, the bright red paint, the sense that you were part of a racing lineage. Those intangibles justified the cost. Buyers accepted higher service bills and lower reliability because they believed their machines were art. But art has met the cold reality of a saturated market. Premiums that once held firm are collapsing under the weight of buyer caution. Listings for Panigales and monsters that once disappeared in weeks now sit for months, with owners reluctantly slashing asking prices. The proud boasts about residual value have turned to quiet frustration. Emotional investment is colliding with financial loss, and it stings. Collectors with pristine, low-mileage models may still command respect, but the everyday rider trying to unload a bike with overdue valve service is discovering the market has no sympathy. Buyers, spoiled for choice, walk away unless the discount is steep. Ducati pride remains intact at the cafe, but in the classifieds it is evaporating. The Italian dream is not immune to economic gravity, but as tribes fight over prices, the real storm brews above them, in the institutions. Dealer inventory pressure. Walk into a motorcycle showroom right now and you can feel the tension before anyone says a word. The rows are too neat, the bikes too still, the salespeople too eager. Dealerships are suffocating under a mountain of inventory, much of it arriving months later than planned. What was supposed to be a steady pipeline of supply has turned into a dam burst, and the flood is drowning dealers. Seasonality has always been a delicate dance in power sports. Spring deliveries set up the summer sales rush, while autumn and winter require careful stocking to avoid carrying losses into the slow months. This year, the rhythm collapsed. Prices peaked early, demand weakened in midsummer, and yet shipments kept arriving. Dealers who counted on scarcity to preserve margins now find themselves begging for traffic. Every unsold unit racks up carrying costs through floor plan financing, those short-term loans that allow showrooms to stock machines. The pressure is not just financial, it is psychological. Owners remember when scarcity made every bike a prize. Now they walk their own floors, seeing metal that ages by the week, whispering to themselves about interest clocks ticking in the background. Every day a machine sits unsold is another day closer to red ink. And when the floor plan bends, finance comes knocking. Finance and refinance trap. Financing has shifted from silent partner to executioner. Rising annual percentage rates have transformed what used to be manageable payments into crushing obligations. A loan that once carried 4% interest might now demand double digits, and that shift changes everything. For new buyers, it means hesitation. For current owners, it means danger. The refinance trap is brutal. Riders who bought during the pandemic, often with minimal down payments, now discover that their bikes are worth less than they owe. Attempting to refinance into today's higher rates only compounds the pain. They are stuck, unable to sell without eating losses, unable to refinance without spiking monthly costs. This is the definition of negative equity, and it spreads like a contagion through both consumers and the lenders who hold the notes. Lenders, for their part, are marking down collateral aggressively. A machine that once justified a $10,000 loan may now be booked at $8,000, leaving borrowers underwater before they even sign. That forces credit tightening, approval declines, and stricter terms across the board. The flow of easy money that once kept showrooms humming has frozen solid, leaving dealers watching would-be buyers get turned away. And as lenders tighten, another cloud drifts in: tariffs. Tariff cloud. Even before a single law is passed, the threat of tariffs can destabilize markets. Rumors of new duties on imported motorcycles or parts ripple outward, chilling both buyers and sellers. No one wants to commit if tomorrow's price could be higher, and no one wants to stockpile if tomorrow's duties could make today's inventory look expensive. Confidence erodes, and with it, demand. Tariffs also strike indirectly through the parts pipeline. A brake assembly that costs 20% more to import translates into higher repair bills, higher insurance payouts, and ultimately more total loss declarations from insurers. Those write-offs add yet more units to the secondary market, increasing supply just when the system is already buckling. Accessory makers and aftermarket suppliers face the same pressure, raising costs for maintenance and customization. The global nature of motorcycle production magnifies the problem. A bike assembled in the United States might still rely on components from Japan, Thailand, or Italy. A tariff applied at any point along that chain raises costs across the board. Dealers find themselves trapped, forced to explain price hikes to customers already skittish about financing. The market becomes a minefield of uncertainty where no one wants to take the first step. But even if tariffs come, there is still one line of defense: loyalty. Until it cracks, loyalty lane. Brand loyalty has long been the hidden engine of motorcycle sales. Riders wear their badges like family crests, defending their choice against all rivals. That loyalty creates a buffer in hard times, keeping customers tethered to showrooms even when deals look shaky. But loyalty has limits, and the market shock is testing them. For now, many owners grit their teeth and stick with their brand, waiting for discounts or financing specials. They scroll through listings of other marques but close the tab before clicking Contact Seller. The attachment is emotional, not rational. Yet every month of falling prices erodes that attachment. When a rider sees a similar machine from a competing brand for thousands less, even the proudest loyalist hesitates. Once that hesitation becomes action, the floodgates open. The cracks will show first in segments where buyers are most price-sensitive: entry-level sport bikes, mid-range adventure machines, and commuter-friendly standards. Luxury segments may hold a little longer, but eventually even passion bends to arithmetic. When loyalty collapses, it does not do so slowly. It cascades, breaking across the entire ecosystem at once. And once loyalty breaks, the aftershocks spread far beyond dealerships. You've seen how deep this story runs, but we're only scratching the surface. Subscribe now so you never miss the next chapter, because the ripple effects are already spreading, and you'll want to be first to know. What is a motorcycle worth now? When the dust settles, the real question is not how many bikes sold or which dealers survived. It is deeper, almost existential. What is a motorcycle worth? Value is no longer just a number in a price guide. It has become a contested idea, reshaped by auctions, insurers, communities, and culture. Financially, the answer is sobering. Book values will take years to recover, if they ever do. Insurance companies, burned by inflated claims during the boom, are recalibrating payouts downward. Auctions set new baselines that lenders cannot ignore. For riders who once believed their machines were equity, the revelation is brutal. A motorcycle is not an investment, it is an expense. Culturally, though, worth stretches beyond dollars. For some, the glut strips away the pretense and restores purity. Ride because you love it, not because you expect resale. For others, the crash scars identity, turning badges of pride into reminders of financial loss. Communities fracture between those who embrace the new reality and those who mourn the old one. In the end, worth may not be measured on resale sheets at all. It may be defined in miles ridden, in friendships forged, in memories made. Yet the shadow of the collapse will linger, a reminder that markets do not just price machines, they price dreams. Because when the first wave is 3 million bikes, the second wave is what it does to everyone who rides them. The story doesn't end here. It's only beginning. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay ahead of the next shockwave. Because the market's already shifting, and missing the next update could mean missing your chance to prepare. Comment down below what you think of this story.